Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 176.
Yeah, I guess it's about being a small company and having a small team, but we pretty much do the prototyping, do the research, and end up coding the final feature into the product itself. I don't know exactly.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
Well, Keith, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Good. So, over the last several months, we've been asking people to share some of their struggles they're having kind of in the real world with their wireless LAN jobs and their different applications. So we've been getting a lot of questions in with the idea that they would love to know what an expert has to say about this. So we thought this would be a great chance just to kind of ask you some of these questions, if that's all right with you, and kind of help these people out.
Sounds like a good idea. We should maybe even add this as a ongoing thing on the podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, we're getting a lot of them in, and obviously people can keep sending them in. But here's one from Alex, and his question is this: the single biggest challenge I face as a wireless LAN professional is getting my hands on wireless site survey software tools like AirMagnet. I am just getting started and running a small consulting and integration business. The cost of getting some of these software tools can be pretty daunting. What would you say to him?
Alex, you're totally legitimate in asking that question. It does feel really daunting because it's quite expensive when you look at it from a cash basis. Thousands of dollars are going to go out, and you don't know whether or not that money's going to come back in. So I understand the position you're in. On the flip side, it's really hard to be a professional and not have professional tools. So it's a kind of a catch-22 between, do I have the work that will pay for the tool, or do I have the tool and then it will bring me work? So I understand your question. What I've found is you can usually justify just about any tool if you have the job to go with it. So the problem is you go to a customer and they are looking for a validation survey to find out exactly where their data is, and you don't have the tool to do it properly, so you end up doing it lack of a better word, improperly, just using whatever things you have on your computer, walking around and just taking measurements, and not being able to produce a heat map and show them the things that they expect to see. It's really hard to charge the professional service fees for something that doesn't have those same kind of tools. So it is a little tough, but if you have the work available, buying the tool would be paid for itself within just a couple uses of doing the real work. So I would suggest take a very conscious, hard look at, do you have enough business to justify it? If you don't, then try doing other things. Maybe not the need site survey tools. If you don't have the work, it's really hard to justify the cost. If you have the tool, then you can go and easily justify the fees that you'd receive. So starting out in the beginning, very difficult. You might want to try practicing with some other tools. You can usually get anywhere from a couple days to maybe a month worth of demo at some vendors. But you do need to have the tool and be able to use it in order to justify that kind of work. So I hope that helps.
Do you ever suggest where you should spend your first dollars? Is there a hierarchy, or is it just, again, depending on which job you have, what's in front of you?
It's usually based more on the jobs that are in front of you. If you have a troubleshooting job and the solution has something to do with packet captures, you can start out with something like Wireshark, that the program itself is free, but you just have to have a whole lot of knowledge. So it's a lot of practice and learning, but you don't need to spend much money in order to do that. If the job requires seeing where there's coverage, where there's not coverage, or do we have primary and secondary, or is there voice grade Wi-Fi, that requires a tool like AirMagnet or Ekahau, or perhaps Tamosoft, something like that would allow you to map out where things are. And there just isn't any free version or even low-cost version that allows you to get the quality that you'd need for a professional job.
So in your career, just even before Wi-Fi, What was kind of your thought process when you had to spend those first big dollars on different software, different tools?
I kind of lucked out. I married into a family that did construction, and they brought along this idea that I never heard before called a side job. I was doing construction, working for my father-in-law one summer in university, and the brother-in-law that I was living with said, "You want to do a side job this weekend?" And I didn't know how to do, they were doing tile, and I didn't know how to do tile. And they said, "If you come along, we'll pay you extra, but this is a side job. It's on the weekend." So I'm like, okay. So I tried it, and I didn't know how to do tile, but I definitely carried lots and lots of tile and hod carrying and all that over the weekend. At the end of the weekend, they gave me $500 cash. And I went, whoa, what's this for? And they said, well, it's a side job. You get your little side job money. And I realized that there's a lot of money that you can be having by doing side jobs. So basically most of my career has just been a string of side jobs. It's about it's find the revenue to go along with it. So for me, it was fairly simple. The first side job that required a project, a law firm asked me to do a bunch of plots using an old-fashioned Hewlett-Packard plotter, and I didn't have one, so I went to see if I could buy one and what it cost, and realized that how much they paid me for each of the plots. If they asked for 57 plots, I could pay for the plotter, and I forgot to count the ink. But they had asked for 100 plots, and at the end of one long weekend of letting the plotter run 24/7 for 3 days, I had paid for the plotter and the ink. So I didn't make any money, but I now had a plotter. So the next time they asked, it was almost pure profit. So I've been trained from decades ago that if you have the job, you can basically afford just about any tool. Maybe the first or second time you use it, you're just paying for the tool itself, but pretty soon you have the tool and you're making profit off of it.
What are some of the, like, maybe going on the negative side, or maybe when people ask this question, like what you might see that they have the wrong approach, or the wrong, you can tell that they're not going to succeed at this, is if they're making excuses. Have you seen that kind of stuff happen too when people kind of ask these type of questions?
Well, sometimes they go one of two ways. One, they go out and just borrow money to buy the coolest, latest, fancy tool, but don't know how to use it. So they have the tool, but then they won't have the way to make an income off of the tool to ever pay it back. It's tempting because you want to play with this really fancy tool, but you need the job to go along with it. So they go together. Or someone takes on a job that really needed the tool, but they wanted to make profit off their first job because I need the profit. So instead of investing, they just did the work, got paid, and then there won't be another job that comes behind it because they didn't perform professionally. So I've seen mistakes going both directions.
Well, thank you, Keith. Hopefully, Alex, that helps you and anyone else listening. And of course, we would love to answer your questions. You can send them in to help@wlandpros.com, and we'll get those questions answered in future podcast episodes. I'm assuming, Keith, you don't mind that, do you?
No, not at all. Let's continue this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Keith.
WLAN interview. Getting to know the leaders, movers, and shakers in the wireless LAN world.
Welcome. This is Keith Parsons with Wireless LAN Professionals, and today I have a whole gang of people from Ekahau in on the session. You guys want to introduce yourselves and go around the room?
Sure.
Hi, I'm Raj. I'm looking into the cloud architecture and development.
Thanks, Raj.
Hi, I'm Mikael Kohl. I'm the tech lead for the Ekahau Pro. Main responsibilities, technical issues with the Pro, and also a little bit here and there with all the other products.
All right, thanks.
Hi, I'm Teemu from the research team, and I'm working on the interference detection.
Thanks, Teemu.
Hey, I'm Jarno. I'm from the research team as well, working on cross-platform stuff and the iOS app.
Thanks, Jarno.
Hey, I'm Jussi, and I know Keith, and I also know Fernay. Yes, I happen to be in Helsinki, saying hi to the gang and all the team that is putting all this wonderful stuff together.
So you decided to go to Helsinki just to give them one more thing to do before the announcement?
Yes, and just to say hi and just kind of cheer them up. They've been pretty stressed out with all the big announcement tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, if Fernay's there, then you guys have no stress at all.
Yeah.
He's just helping.
Yeah, he's totally made us zen. Morning was bad, but then Fernay arrived, and it's all good now. So literally, it is just to set the stage. It's the day before the products are launched, and Fernay just thought it would be a good idea on one day's notice to come here and hang out with us for a day. Thanks, man.
And help out, yeah. Well, and just to poke at him, Fernay gets to go to your new offices before I did, so.
Dude, we need to fix that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to fix that now. It's all over. So, well, glad you're there. Glad you're there, Fernay. You can represent well.
Yes, I'm here. Just the face of wireless LAN professional the day before.
Great. Well, this is the day before in the real world, but we'll be announcing this. This podcast will be going live after the announcement, so we can talk about things like as if they were already existent. But I thought we'd have a chance to have a discussion here between the Ekahau team there and find out more about the people side of the equation. You obviously have a bunch of folks there working, and I'm sure this is a very small subset of all the people working on it. But let's just start with Raj and cloud. This is an entirely new facet for Ekahau. Can you share with us, the process that Ekahau went through, human-wise of learning and getting up to speed on the cloud?
Yeah, actually, we have started this cloud product almost 2 years back, and we were doing lots of research on that, choosing what kind of AWS provider or the cloud provider we need to choose. Like we have then did some POC and then selected like AWS were the masters in cloud providers nowadays. So we have choose AWS. And then what are the technologies we can use, like it should be cost effective, more secure and robust. So all this has been put into our desk, and then we have chatted with internal teams and then we choose some of the open source technologies so that it could be adaptive to any platform and easy for migration purposes if required in future. So all these things have been put into the process, and then we kickstarted with the milestones of MVP, and then we jot on like what are the MVP features which we are going to pitch in during the release to the customers or users. So those things we have drafted and then implemented slowly one by one, and with lots of regression testings and bugs and fixes. And finally we are here now for the launch tomorrow. Hope we will be rocking with this product. I have the very good confidence on that.
Here were security and load testing and getting the load
Exactly.
right and stuff like that. You want to talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, the security was like the most important for the cloud users. We were created lots of like entry points where we can secure the users in terms of data privacy, in terms of security, like this WAF web application firewall, and then DDoS attack preventions. By default, like AWS have some standard prevention methodology or techniques or the hardware devices or software devices. But in addition to that, we have created an advanced security measures has been placed. And we have found some minor vulnerabilities, and those got fixed before the release. Now it's bug free at the moment, or vulnerability free, I would say. Most secure to use for the cloud users. And in terms of performance, like we are still trying to improve day by day. It's not that very good, I would say. If 10,000 parallel users come and hit the cloud, that won't happen near future or so. But still, like we are trying to achieve more and more. We are increasing our bars to the next level and trying to achieve the better performance. How fast we can upload or do the sync from client to cloud. It depends upon the project size, of course, and then network speed. So even though we are trying to achieve our best.
Have you done specific testing on what if the end user only has a cellular connection rather than a regular Wi-Fi or wired internet connection?
We have done specific tests like wireless, basically wireless testing and wired connection. So the speed is different from wireless and wired connections. Of course, like the wired is much speed, better upload speed. But during that time, we have noticed like 165 MB projects will take at least less than 1 minute of syncing. So we have done some
And
testing on
we
that.
had a system, remember, that we set up where we intentionally kind of crippled the wireless connection.
Exactly.
And worked on a, very full of packet errors, full of retries type of super slow connection as well, and tested against that. And
Did you just have Eddie come and set up a bad fi for you?
we are pretty good at that ourselves. You'll see when you get here, man.
Well, thanks, Raj. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
For Jarno and Temo, from the research side, not being familiar with the entire development cycle, what does the research team do?
So I guess we sort of have more long-term topics. So it's less, if you have like a development project, usually you can almost attach a product version where we want this upgrade, this fix, or this new feature to be in. But for research, it might start from, we have this thing that we want to look at, but we're not sure when we're bringing it in, and it might not even be clear in what product version we want this before we actually see if we can do it or not. So it's a more like a long-term projects and then more sort of ethereal projects where you're not sure does this even pan out.
So what would a percentage be of the things you've worked on that made it into a product?
I think we have a pretty good track record so far. I mean, I guess we've been pretty rational in the sense of what we actually take on. So there's been a real need for a product or a new feature. So we haven't really started any sort of academic projects in that sense that are completely detached from any sort of final product. So in that sense, I think I can't really think of a single project that we haven't gone through at some point.
Yeah, maybe there have been like shorter prototypes.
Yeah,
have
that's
been done in a matter of few weeks. But
no one has
no really long-term project. That we would have just abandoned.
Yeah. And we've had some of them have been in the plate, like on and off development for 5 or 6 even years, like some of the upcoming wall stuff, for example, not going into details more about that. But and I think Ekahau's research, like you look at large companies and they have siloed research departments where they are researching for like topics 10, 20 years from today. But Ekahau's, maybe the research is like 1 to 3 to 5 years out. And typically it's very much like Teemu said, targeted towards, actually having that, shipping products.
Yeah.
And one unique factor, maybe you can, Jarno, talk about this, is that not only do you guys do research, but also production code.
Yeah, I guess it's about being a small company and having a small team, but we pretty much do the prototyping, do the research, and end up coding the final feature into the product itself. I don't know.
Exactly.
That might be a good thing, or that it might be perceived as a bad thing. There's certainly ups and pros and cons towards that kind of approach. But yeah, we basically do the whole thing by ourselves.
And it's like, of course, at times, if it has let's say a research problem and then a UX heavy component to it, some other persons might be helping out with the user interface. And then, but you guys do, like, for example, in Teemo's case, you did all the freaking work, although it's a fairly UI heavy thing. So that's pretty exceptional that you guys actually not just write a prototype example of the thing, but you do the whole shebang. You might, and of course it always, like, whatever has UI goes through the UX guy. So the UX guy kind of, with the PM team does the workflow and how the UI should look like. But with that constraint, then you guys are just off the chains, and there you go.
Well, I've got a good story for Temo there on his interference detection. Mm-hmm. I was testing some new product, and I was in my house, just sitting on the couch working through something, and I'm complaining because it keeps telling me there's a baby monitor in my house, and I'm a grandparent. I don't have little kids. And I'm sitting there frustrated, and I finally voice it out loud, and I say something. I'm like, this stupid thing keeps showing there's a baby monitor. And my wife goes, oh, yeah, I bought one for when the grandkids were over. So I should have trusted it a little better, that it was actually there and it was telling me the truth. So
yeah, or really great timing. So, yeah.
It was like I didn't think it was true, and then it was actually smarter than I was. So I appreciate that effort. So what's the hardest thing as a team to communicate between research and and what's the Ekahau process of getting the input from the industry, the people want, but you just can't give everything everyone wants, and to pare it down into projects that the developers will actually work on that's going to come out in the next version? What's that process you work inside the company? Other than UC tells me to do it, so I do it. I don't think it works that way.
Yeah, that's actually pretty close to the same.
That's the short answer. Yes, we do what UC tells us to do. But I would say Ekahau does offer a fair amount of opportunities for even normal developers such as ourselves to go out in the world, try out the product, talk to people who actually use it, and we get a unique perspective from there. And I would definitely say that we have some input when it comes to like the finer details.
Have you added any Easter eggs without us knowing, by the way? Now would be a good time to tell it to everybody.
I'm not telling.
That's why they're Easter eggs. Well, while we're on the research team, Keith, is it okay if I steal the mic again for a couple of seconds?
Of course.
And Jarno is a unique guy in a sense that you deal with the iOS actual development a lot, but then you also do research. So what did you do exactly in this project, and how did you share your time between the software development and the research-based tasks? And well, those are two overlapping things anyway.
Yeah. So one major thing for the new product is that we had to do the subsets of visualizations for the iOS also. So we figured that instead of porting a lot of code and trying to maintain two different code bases, we want to have a common code base that we could use as a library from both the desktop application and the iOS application. And so there was basically two overlapping projects. One is that we wanted to build this common code base, and the second one was that we wanted to kind of redo certain aspects of the visualization engine. So that has been very interesting. So we have been like jumping to a completely different platform and completely different languages, and did some research work in the meanwhile. So that has been a very big part of what has been happening for the past year.
Is it a secret to? So don't tell me if it is what that code base is that is transportable between Mac, Windows, iOS, and perhaps Android.
We use C++ to compile to native code, and then we have Objective-C bindings and Java bindings to that code. So yeah, surprisingly, it seems to be one of the few ways to do cross-platform development nowadays. With C++, you wouldn't expect that C++ would be the first item on your list when you're looking for cross-platform solutions, but that's how it seemed to go.
And then we also do Kotlin.
Yeah, true. So we kind of experimented with that common code base thing, and there's a pretty sizable part of the code is now also running in Kotlin. Nowadays, it's possible to also use Kotlin from iOS and Java. So there's one piece of code running in Kotlin now. So we have both the C++, the visualization related code on iOS runs on C++, and then the part relating to grouping logic actually runs on Kotlin now.
The SSID and MAC address radio binding, all that stuff.
Yeah. So how you figure out, you get measurements from different types of frames from a radio, and then you need to figure out like which of those measurements form a single radio or come from the same radio. So that's now running on Kotlin on the iOS side.
And iOS is Swift.
right?
Yeah, iOS is Swift. All the UI code and everything is in Swift.
Well, let's change subjects here for just a second. You have obviously a multinational group of people there, different languages. Tiger's from China, Raj is from India. You have people from all over the world. What's the language of development when you meet in meetings?
Yeah, we force everybody to learn Finnish on the dot, right?
So that's why product development took 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. We would have shifted months, but damn those language barriers. What do you guys think? Because you're kind of the non-Finnish speaking here. How do you perceive the environment?
Yeah, at least like I never seen any hard to communicate with a Finnish guy or a non-Finnish guy in Ekahau at least, or even in Finland. I never faced such problems. So even though I'm here for 9 years, but I never know a single word in Finnish. But I never had a situation to learn Finnish. To be frank, it was very much easy for me to communicate in English with all the Ekahau guys. So it was quite effective, and people are open to talk. And
Yeah.
very, very helpful. Yeah.
And now it's not just multi-language speaking persons, but it's also we have people. Adrian was across and is across the pond who was making packet capture. Then we have iOS. Some of the iOS guys are in Bulgaria. So how's that been for you, for example, Jarno?
Yeah, it has been super interesting to work with. Not only that it's lots of different nationalities working in Helsinki, but also all around the world. And yeah, very, very challenging in a way, but very, very rewarding also.
Yeah, and for example, take the Bulgarian guys. It's 3 people, but they feel absolutely integrated into the team. They've been with us for years, and just the amount of ownership and pride they have in the product, and nobody has ever quit this project out of the Bulgarian guys. So it's the same freaking consultants for year in, year out. So to me, at least, it's been a mind-blowing experience. Like people talk all kinds of bad things about consultants, but these guys are the most talented people you can find. The nicest people. Anytime they come here, they light up the office even further.
Well, with these teams around the world, how often do the developers get together physically in person?
The Bulgarians come here, for example, once a month or once every 6 weeks or so. Is that fair?
Yeah, something like that for a week at a time.
Yeah, for 1 week at a time. And otherwise we're very Helsinki focused, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's almost everybody here, but then we have people like Wednesday is a typical remote day, so there's very few developers at the office. And then, some people have just said, I'm going to leave somewhere out of Helsinki, I get a bigger house, better quality of life, blah, blah, blah. And then, they just go live somewhere else, and then they come to the office once a week or twice a week or whatever they want. These guys are internally motivated. It's not like, we need to be, like anybody needs to be behind their shoulders, telling them to work harder. I guess that's not how software development works. I don't know. You guys tell me, but
no, yeah, we are in constant. I think I know who we're referring to. who is this mysterious guy living in a cabin somewhere? But it's not like we have a specific need to be face to face all the time. So. It's very easy to collaborate remotely with Timo, for instance.
And the guy who heads the research team.
Yeah.
What about the other issues of your corporate culture there? It's a little unique. I mean, having been in your office a couple times, people have standing desks. There's rooms for games. There's food at way too many ways to make coffee. What's the attitude there, the culture that you've built over the years of how to deal with employees?
You guys should talk.
But kind of similar to what Jarno was just saying. If we're clearly more result oriented than we don't look too closely on working times, and we focus mainly on what do the people achieve, and people achieve best when they can work.
You have some thing. I don't want to use the word weird, but but there's some weird things like the mindfulness little bits going on. You guys sit around and And
Yeah.
chant finish things while you're in the sauna or something?
Oh, yeah. So we don't really mix mindfulness and sauna together.
Oh, okay.
That's a wild rumor.
Those are two separate things.
Those are definitely two separate.
We should make that a thing.
Yeah, it should be like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it should be a serene place where you kind of meditate, but
Yeah.
it's not really.
Yeah.
But this mindfulness thing.
That was your
Oh
project,
gosh,
wasn't it?
yeah. We haven't continued that. I think we should continue that.
We definitely should.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, we switched mindfulness to Big Lebowski. We watched the Ekahau Classic movie night and watched a movie called Big Lebowski here.
Yeah.
Definitely a classic. Definitely a classic.
Yeah.
So what's the culture there for? I hate the term, but I'll use it anyway. Work-life balance. How do you go about balancing, the pressures of rolling out new code, new ideas, along with keeping your families happy?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, I don't. When I leave the office, I don't look at my work mails. I mean, this is a personal thing. I'm sure other people do keep constant watch on their mail. I know Jussi definitely has to do it. But for me, when I leave the office, I close the work phone. That's pretty much it. And I don't think too much about work. Well, sometimes when I go to sleep.
Well, that's where all the answers come.
That's true. Or the toilet.
That's where all the food goes.
And what's the so address the coffee issue there? You guys have been known as be coffee snobs, and then at Atmosphere, Jerry and Joel actually presented on coffee.
Yeah, while being high on coffee, high on caffeine. So I think that comes naturally. So Finns consume the most amount of coffee per capita in the world.
I thought that was vodka.
That's Russia. Different.
Oh, Russia. Oh, okay. You're close.
Geographic straight. Russia next to Finland, not Finland anymore. Anyway, so we consume a lot of coffee, and then I think like 10, 15 years ago, this hipster, quality-conscious coffee culture kind of started to blossom in Helsinki. More and more better coffee shops started opening up, and people really started to pay attention to coffee. And I think this goes to the deep into the Finnish engineering-minded mindset in a way as well. Like whatever we start doing, then it has to be super quality conscious. I'm looking at speakers right now in our hall, which are Genelec, GENELEC, and those are really, really good speakers, engineered and built in Finland. So we're really if you like audio, then it has to be super studio quality audio. If we do vodka, it has to be the best vodka or best gin. The world's best gin comes out of Finland. Whatever engineering mindset, wherever we throw that engineering mindset, I think it just works in terms of somehow it works. Maybe it's because the days are short in the winter and we have nothing better to do. Maybe it's the fact that we push more engineering than marketing, and we always have, right? Swedes, Sweden is next door to Finland. Those guys have IKEA, and they have Ace of Base, and they have Rockset, and they have Volvo and Ericsson and all those things. And I mean, we haven't known in the last only in the last 10 or 20 years have we learned to market our stuff. Before that, we were full on engineering country. I think maybe it comes from there.
Yeah, I would have provided a much different explanation. I think it's you and Jarmo Kinnunen, our lead designer, who basically started this coffee thing. But I fully appreciate the good quality coffee here in the office.
I'd love to take the credit, but it's really I think it's Jarno, the UX guy. When we moved to the new office, he bought these enormously good yet simple to use coffee things that everybody can use, but nobody can screw up the coffee. It comes perfect every time.
Yeah, I heard that the coffee grinder, when Jarno kind of put it on the list that we need this, the guy who signs the bills was like, okay, this costs more than the rest of the kitchen combined. Do you want to do this?
And there are tons of knobs and different buttons on those machines, and Jarmo Kinnunen maybe monthly goes in and just optimizes everything, brews tons of coffee and optimizes the positions of those knobs. And you just can't touch any of those knobs like wire. Well, I just don't touch anything.
I tried changing the beams once on the coffee, and he got absolutely furious. He like almost threw me out the window. It was very, very close.
Yeah.
And speaking of quality consciousness, it goes to everywhere. It goes to not just the coffee, but it translates to the software quality, and even like the UX guy, the hats. He puts the quality in the hats, and he looks at the colors of the threads, individual threads on the color gradient in the hats, and he's just a very quality conscious guy. Yeah.
Well, I've been through multiple iterations of your launches and new product upgrades. It's been kind of an annual thing for as long as I've known Ekahau. But in the past, you've launched, and then later, at some point in time, there was the first customer ship, the FCS code. This launch is a little unique that you're launching and actual launching at the same time. Did that change much of what your launch process?
I think it's been, you're right. Recently, we probably have pre-launched and then shipped, but this is such a big deal. We just have to be sure that everything works and works in combination. So we needed like a target date set when we launch everything. It's an all or nothing kind of a thing. We couldn't just launch the iPad and not ship a new version of ESS, or we couldn't just launch the cloud and not update the other applications. So I guess that was maybe one of the driving forces, and it was also like a really long road to get all the pieces ready to a state where we could ship them. So let's say we had pre-launched these 3 months ago, we would have probably said that, it will ship next month, and it would not have. So we just wanted to be sure this time around. But if you recall Sidekick, Keith, thank you for being on also for the Sidekick launch. In Sidekick, I think we just got the factory up and running the day we pretty much launched as well. Granted, it took some time to get the second factory going and all that to really fulfill the demand. But it's an on-and-off thing.
Oh, thinking of different countries, your factory is in a different country, right?
We have 2 now. So the first one was in Estonia, but most of the units now are coming, and we're proud to say, out of Finland. It's like 30 miles from the office. So we set up a second factory to keep up with the demand, and it's now producing most of the Sidekicks. They're made in Finland.
Made in Finland or made in Estonia, it's almost the same thing. Just a little quick ferry ride over.
This is true.
Maybe a train ride in the future.
Yeah.
As a development team, do you do any team building exercises outside the office to try to strengthen? Because obviously there's a lot of people in different categories, and they don't all work together at the same time. How do you build unit group cohesion between them?
You guys have played. I wasn't here, but you played cricket. We've been playing beach volleyball, different kinds of activities. What are we doing next Friday? We're doing a very Finnish thing.
That's anybody's guess. No one has any idea what is going to happen in Friday, but
I think it's like sauna or a movies day, and then some dinner together, and then going to some
hotel bar.
I think it's more like drink and talk.
Yes,
very fancy.
Yes.
So very Finnish evening, sauna, and then drink and talk. That's a pretty good.
So is sauna the start or the end?
Might be both.
It starts at the end. Beginning.
Yeah, this time, but it varies. Yeah. Sometimes we have a sauna the whole evening, and like half of people spend the whole time there.
And there's a lot of like people who like games, for example, here. So at times when I leave the office later, there's some people playing the console still here, and then some of you play card games, right? Magic the Gathering, stuff like that. At least you do.
Yeah, but I haven't found anyone in the company yet who likes it. So, but some board games we've been playing some nights.
Well, one final question. You just go around the room. If you feel like answering, go ahead. What's your plans now that the launch is done to release the stress of the pre-launch? What are you going to do in the next week to relax?
Like as I said, like this Friday we are going already for an office party, so that is most relaxing thing, I guess. Spending a couple of things with my family. At least like last few weeks, I was not like able to spend much time because of this release activities. So I'll be maybe in the weekends, like I'll be spending quality time with my family as well.
Right. For me, like I said earlier, I don't take that much stress when I leave work, and I actually don't take that much stress when I come to work either. So, business as usual.
It's a really good answer. It should be in our job ad or something. What about you guys?
Yeah, for me, so from the research perspective, it's been kind of hectic in the sense that, now we're suddenly attached to a project with a version number or something like that. This needs to be done by X date. So in that sense, just falling back to a kind of research where it doesn't have a sort of release date. We can look at this little thing, and it doesn't have to be something with 2 weeks. So step back from the UI side a bit and look at numbers for a while.
That's relaxing.
Yeah, I'm definitely with Teemu here. It will be wonderful to get back to the kind of research mode.
Yeah.
Building prototypes and learning stuff.
And you, for example, both of you are well on your way already in the next project, especially you, Jarno. Not to go into specifics, but it's pretty awesome. And there's new interference detection stuff now starting to form that can really interesting. For me, it's over Easter. I'll take a couple of additional days off, go somewhere warm, and recharge the batteries.
Isn't it warm in Helsinki yet?
It was yesterday.
Yeah, it was for one day. I guess that was summer. Now it's back to fall. Was that sarcasm, Keith? I heard in your voice a little bit.
I've been in Helsinki on warm days. I've been in Helsinki on very cold days. So, well, great. I appreciate your time on the day before your launch, taking some time to answer some questions and share a little bit of the personalities from the people on the development team. So you've done a great job there, UC, putting together a team of developers, researchers, all coming up with a new product that's going to be launched and announced tomorrow. So we didn't cover any of the launch details in this session, but there's lots of other places you can go to get more details on the new products that Ekahau have just released. Thanks for your time, folks.
Thanks. Just to add, I didn't put together anything, so it's the team and Nico and Tommy and everybody here that put this all together. It's everybody, and that's how it stays together as well.
Well, it's obviously a team effort there making it happen.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter at Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.